former Dean and Joint Director Education, IRI, and convener of this training program. And so I am R. Roy Burman. As I have requested, madam, there is no need for a formal introduction for me because it's a known group. Most of some of the trainees are my classmates, my juniors, and I know many of them by face and also by name. So it needs no introduction. And so I am thankful to NAS for inviting me for this training program. I am part of this training program. It is a pleasure and it's a privilege for me. So as madam told that there is less time today, 4:30 onwards you are supposed to leave for ISRI. So I have about 45 to 50 minutes. And though I prepared the presentation with a part for the theory part and also practical part, but I'd like to skip the theory part because the slides will be with you and you can anytime go through. But some of the practical part that I wish to discuss with you, that I will do it. And if madam permits, can I go to that side because I'll be continuing there. Okay.
Some video problem was there on that camera.
No, he has told that there should not be a problem. So good afternoon, friends. The topic was given to me, development of teaching aids, and since this is a pedagogical training, so there is a need of teaching aids. We use teaching aids in our teaching, and as I told that, I shall very briefly cover the initial part, and then slowly I go to the practical part. So we all know teaching is a job to create an environment where learning can take place. And where the interest of the learners are aroused and then their desire to learn was also aroused and actions promoted because action, why it is important because learning is a self-activity. When we involve ourselves in the process of learning, then we learn. Nobody otherwise can make us learn. So that is in order to have learning, which is a self-activity, the action has to be promoted. Before that, before the action, there has to be a desire and interest to learn. And similarly, in case of teaching, when it is best acquired, like learning, it is best acquired when there is a new, touch screen. So there is a new knowledge, skill, and attitude, and also enthusiasm and develop further skill for the learner. Now, in this context, there are three different types of domains where the learning outcomes are categorized. Cognitive, affective, psychomotor. Cognitive is basically the acquisition of knowledge. Affective domain is related to attitude. The psychomotor domain is actually the feel part. And rest of the things are there and it is easy to understand, so I'll not spend much time here. Now, teaching aids, why we need teaching aids? Since we know that the interest has to be captured and the desire to learn has to be aroused, and actually the learning should take place, so action has to be promoted. So for that, we need to teaching aids that can be object, that can be a device, or that can be instructional aids. Even the book is also a teaching aid. But we know that teaching aids are to help the teacher and not replace the teacher. So teaching aids are just only to help us to create interest and also initiate the action to learn. Now, the basic principle is adult code of experience. What it says that with the senses, more number of senses are involved. Now that helps in processing, that helps in retention. So reading, after 2 weeks of reading, we only retain 10%. Similarly, hearing 20, seeing 30, and when more number of senses are involved, when we see and hear it is 50, what we say that is 70, because before saying we process it ourselves, and then at the end, when we say and we do, we get the maximum number of retention. So depending upon that, we need to have our teaching aids, or we need to create the environment in such a way the learning is inculcated and it has become part and parcel of the learner. So in the need of teaching aid, or from the point of view of learners and from the point of view of teachers, I will skip. You can definitely go through it, and also the purpose of teaching aids, that is also well explicit here, so I will not discuss much in this. Then there are types of teaching aids. We know that the audio aids, visual aids, audiovisual aids, and also emergent aids, as we learn the need of the learners, and the learners also contribute. So different types of teaching aids are developed in participation with the learners. So those are called emergent. And there are classifications of aids like projected and non-projected. I'll try to cover the basic principles of designing those projected and non-projected aids in a short while. Then what are the traditional teaching aids, conventional? So I'll not skip here. Here one thing is important, Bloom's taxonomy of cognitive domain that tells us about the kind of processing skill that goes through into human mind. So this is important for us to understand. Here, the lower level of thinking is involved in initial part. When one is the recall, the learning, simply recall the specific fact, which is memorizing. Then when we understand, we try to understand the meaning of the instructional materials, the teaching aids. Third is when we apply what we learn, we apply those information in a new but a similar situation in order to solve that or understand that problem. So applying, then analyzing. Here we try to find out the relationship between different phenomena and to find out what can be the cause of that particular phenomenon. Then we try to evaluate a new situation and make judgments about that. And then we create new information, new ideas. So here, the kind of thinking goes from lower level to higher level, from below to top. So depending upon the kind of learning engagement we need to have in a particular teaching learning situation, we prepare the content of the teaching aid based on this principle. And after that, there can be three sequences we generally visualize teaching aids, the content of teaching aid. One is visualization, sequencing, and storytelling. So the visualization is the simple first step where we discussed here, the recall and memorizing. Then the sequence is where we have tried to emphasize the linkage between different concepts. And so that those understanding, applying, analyzing, and evaluating these four phenomena takes place in sequencing. And storytelling is all aids when we use effectively should create a full and bigger picture in order to have a greater understanding and which they will be able to apply in a new situation or new problem solving. So depending upon the stage, cognitive stage of domain like recognizing, recalling, or interpreting, and then classifying, interpreting, executing, there are different types of aids, which are it's not working here on this surface. So different types of aids are there, which is categorized depending upon the cognitive stage. So I will not go into detail this, but anyway, actually this is the teaching aid type it will classify, as well as it will also depend on the content and the subject. So it is not universal, or there is no thumb rule. So depending upon the content and the subject and also the learner situation and their stage of cognition, we have to choose and we have to design those content. And there are 5 main criteria which actually helps us in choosing the effective teaching aids, which is good for which situation. One is accessibility. So it should be accessible in a classroom situation. We should not try for a teaching aid which is not physically not possible to bring it in a classroom situation. Then the visibility, that should be clearly visible. It should be practical and introduce students to knowledge and skills. Then there should be interactivity, greater degree of interactivity, because thinking and the processing should take place. And usability, the person, both the teacher and the student, they should be able to use those teaching aids. Otherwise, it is not suitable. Now, based upon that, once we come to developing teaching aids, today I'll try to discuss about both projected and non-projected visuals, how to make, and what are the basic principles. So there is no thumb rule like if you follow this, then you will become a good teaching aid maker. But depending upon own situation, what you are already doing it, maybe understanding of certain basic principles will help you to make the things with some background understanding. So though I have written here a PowerPoint presentation, but it is equally applicable for non-projected visual aids like charts or posters. So when we create a teaching aid, for that matter, here it is projected or non-projected visuals. First thing it comes, which is very important, is its visual comfort. Because whenever the visual is there, a teaching aid, if it is a visual, then it has to be pleasing to see and easy to understand. We should not get repelled from a particular visual when we look at the particular visual. And these kind of repulsion or the strains can be physical strain and also mental strain, which creates ability and it makes difficult to assimilate the message which is conveyed through this visual. Now, next is after we come to know about the utility of the visual and what a visual should be or a teaching aid should be, the layout and designing comes into the ground, where layout is basically the arrangement of different visual elements in a visual frame, and designing is how to make it effective so that it becomes easy to read and understand. Okay, so that is the implication of layout and design. As I told, there are some key concepts that we need to understand. One is the optical center. Now, optical center, if this is a visual, which is actually the proportion of an A4 size sheet. So if we divide it into 8, the actual mathematical center is here, where both the diagonals intersect. Okay. So this is the central point of a shape, if this is a rectangle shape. But our optical center is little above than the mathematical center, which is here. So eye perceives, whenever we look at a particular shape or a visual, our eye perceives this as a central point. So this point catches our attention first, whenever we look at a particular shape or a particular visual. So the takeaway point is this is the place where we put the most important message that we would like to convey in a particular visual. So this place otherwise should not have anything else than the most important message. That can be text, that can be image, that can be graph, that can be figure, anything you would like to make them understand. And that is 3 by 8 from top and 5 by 8 from below. Next is hotspot. Other than this optical center, if we divide it into, now this is a little flat 16 by 9 kind of aspect ratio. But anyway, for any shape, if we divide horizontally and vertically in 3 equal parts, there are 4 points of intersection. And these 4 points of intersections are called hotspot. So here, for this visual, if the mathematical center is here, the optical center is somewhere here. Sorry, the optical center is somewhere here. So this is the point where we put our main message. And after that, these 4 points are there, spots are there, that catches attention next. So now the supporting evidences or supporting information we should put here. and our human eye follows left to right. So most of our scripts we write from left to right, except one or two. And because our human eye is tuned to move from left to right, and that helps easy comprehension. So any sequential activity, we must, sorry, so any sequential activity, we should keep it from left to right fashion. Like if any steps 1, 2, 3, we come 4, 5, 6. So 1, 2, 3. After that, the fourth step should come here. 4, 5, 6. Rather than coming from this side. So that helps in comprehension. And this is another thing is center of interest. So for any visual, in order to have clarity and less of ambiguity, we should put only one message in a particular visual at a time. If we are doing it a non-projected, a chart or a poster, so one chart or one poster should convey only one theme. And if there are more number of themes, in case of slide, we do, if there is a restriction in number of slides, then we can have animation. So at a point of time, there should be only one clear message which is available on a particular visual frame, supported by, so this is the main message space, optical center, supported by the supporting evidences at 4 hotspots. And those hotspots and those messages can be anything, any visual element. Now, after that, another important thing is text. We put a lot of text in a visual thing and in our teaching aids. So it is necessary. But before we actually do, we must understand a few things about the text. There are different fonts we use. So all same size and different fonts. Now, among that, we choose depending upon our own liking of a particular font. Somebody is using a particular font, somebody is using another particular font, or maybe most of us we go with the default Microsoft Word or Microsoft PowerPoint, whatever font is coming. So we use that. That is absolutely fine. But I'd like to just tell you that most of the fonts, almost all the fonts can be categorized in 2 different types, serif and sans serif. Now, serif is basically in French, pen strokes. Previously, we used to write. So there are pen strokes. So these strokes which are coming out, so these are actually called serif. All fonts where there are this kind of pen strokes coming out are categorized as a serif. Sans serif means no serif. It is actually same, but here I will show you this one. Arial, there is no pen strokes coming out. Sorry, actually by mistake it was copied twice. So here there is no serif. So all Calibri, Arial, so they are categorized as a non-serif font style. So where there is no serif. Now among serif also there are 3 different types: old style, modern, slab shading. Now 3 different fonts are used, all of same size, 18, but visibly there is difference. I can show you actually what font type it is. So this is so this is Baskerville Old Face, this is Onyx, and this is Century. So all 32. Okay. So all 32, but visibly there is dissimilarity. Now the purpose of using different type of font, what? To distinguish from one set of font to another set of. Maybe heading, subheading, text. Among the text, we want to highlight something. So we need a different font types. So when we use serif font types, the takeaway point is when we use serif font type, we can use the similar font size, but we can use different font in order to distinguish one set of text with another. Okay. But in case of sans serif. Now these two fonts otherwise looks similar. Only this is little bold and this is little less bold. So again, if we see what are the fonts, so this is Arial and this is Franklin Gothic. So now here, visibly they are similar. So if we use sans serif, then for creating a different set of text, either we use higher text size or we use different color of text in order to create distinction between two sets of text box. Then the font size and type, height of font and from the distance from where it is visible, there is a set pattern. But in case of projected visual, it is not applicable much because it depends upon the distance between the projector and the screen and also the viewing distance screen to the last hall. So that is not always constant and we are not aware of when we are going to for a teaching situation. So basically what we do is the heading we keep it as a 32 to be on the safe side, subheading we keep it as a 28 and text box we keep it as a 24. Now, in case we need to add more text or there are some figures or images and there is only less space for text, then naturally we come down. But our text, body of text should not be less than 18 at any point of time. Now, this is the PowerPoint slide. If we divide it into 25 equal parts, so now the text height is this, which is again 24. So there should not be more than 12 lines here, 12 lines of text in a PowerPoint. Like for a visual. Now we come to readability. I will show you 3 types, and you yourself will say which is better to see and read. One is this, next is this, and third is this. Third is this, same text, this and this. So this one is better. Not better. This one? This one is better.
This one is better.
Now, there is no thumb rule and you should not follow or must not follow this. It depends upon individual's own creativity. But what is generally told, the background should be always darker color. And background should be darker color. These are the colors which are preferred for background. And lighter colors like cyan, yellow, orange, white, and green, light green. These should be the text colors. Okay. Should be, but we see many good slides with a white background and colored text. So that there is no kind of a thumb rule and there is no right or wrong. Okay. Then now this is the same. So these colors are brighter and better with this kind of background. Anyway, it is clearly visible. Now, when we have text, it is always helpful if there is a shadow. Shadow gives a sense of depth. 2D becomes 3D, and sense of depth it just protruded out of the base, the frame, and it gives you more or better visibility. Now we come to case. There are several cases. These days it is very easy. Capital A and small a, and if you click, then the options are coming. But there is a general tendency to use all uppercase in capital. There is a general tendency when you use title, we use all uppercase. But it is always, I will show you one example. Now you see, is it easy to read or this is easy to read? No. Now, any idea why it is so? Because it is somebody says homogeneous in nature. all at one level. Now, if you see in case of English alphabet, I am not, I don't want to discuss about the other language alphabets. English alphabet, A, B, C, D, E, F, G comes down, H, I, J comes down, K goes up, L, M, N, O, P comes down, Q comes down. So it is all this and this and this and this. Okay, so all ups and downs and middle. So it is like this. And our human eye is tuned to read that kind of ups and downs and straight and ups and downs and straight. So it is easy to read for us to understand. But uppercase, it should be only used in case of abbreviations. ICAR, IARI, NAS. So only NASC or NAS. So now for that kind of case, we write uppercase, but otherwise we should avoid uppercase and we should use it in a lowercase or a sentence case. If you want to write something in a different way, the title we can use capitalize each letter of first letter of each word. So there is another case which is available. Now spacing, there are two types of spacing. One is between lines and one is between characters. So this is the space which is called kerning, which is between spacing characters. Like this horizontal space. I'm not talking about vertical space. Now the use of horizontal space is when, like if we have too many things to write and then we stretch the box and then it is still going beyond, so we cannot we cannot also squeeze. So we come down to text size 13, 14, 12, and if we are not able to come down than 18, so then we have a restriction and we cannot go beyond the side of the slide. So in that case, we need to squeeze the kerning. Before 100, less than 100% it should be, so that it gets squeezed little bit. Another is, in case of a visual teaching aid, generally we use text in bullets. Texts are to be used in bullets. And bulleted text should be a one-liner. It should not be like this, and it should not be like this. Purposefully, I have kept. The bulleted text should be of only one line. Okay. So what we do, we making it more crisp, and we omit those redundant words. We don't write a full sentence with all grammar in a bulleted text. We should not write. Even if we write, we should not write. There is no need. It should keep the keywords, because bulleted text is, or text in a visual is, because anyway it is supported by the teacher. It is an aid. It is helping teacher to recall, so that we don't miss any important things and we discuss everything related to that. And for the students, when they hear something, it is an additional kind of, they also see those keywords. So it is not a full grammatical sentence we don't write. Many times we start with the, this and this and this and so that is not actually needed. We make it more crisp and then we put it, because now we have a limit of the size. So there comes the utility of kerning. Next is the leading. Leading is basically the space between lines. We are very much using, we are very much conversant with that, but technically it is called leading. Now, what is the use of leading? If we have bulleted short text, then the leading, even if you have a less one spacing, 1.15 spacing, it is okay. But in case of a long sentence, end to end, bulleted text, the leading should be more in order to have good or better readability. Okay. That is one thing. Then we come to the proportion or shape. Now, these days, by default, Microsoft PowerPoint is coming with 16:9 flat aspect ratio slide. It is not a squarish kind of a thing. It is a flat. Even our TV panels are coming all LCD, LED, TFT are all coming 16:9. And before that, we used to have 4:3. The CRT TVs and also our PowerPoint slides and computer monitors. Those days are gone. So we follow 16:9. Now there are many shapes. Among all shapes, rectangle is the most stable shape. And in that also where we have a greater width base, so that is more stable. Now in that also 3/5 ratio is called actually the golden ratio or the golden proportion. That is why by default most of the posters are 3/5. Only to accommodate more number of posters in a given space, we do it in a portrait shape. Otherwise, it should be always in a landscape format. Then we come to white space. So there is a lot of importance of white space in a visual. There should be a margin of 3:2:2:4. So the bottom margin should be more. Many a times we keep our text till last point, so which is not actually a good thing to do. There should be more space here, bottom, equal space from both the sides, and also we should not put our topic or title there again at the top in order to have more number of things on a particular frame. So it should have enough space. Now, if there is a ratio and there is a limitation of margin, you have to keep a margin from this side and from that side. So you cannot have your text box from end to end. And if you have to have one-liner bulleted text, so there the turning comes into your head. And that becomes important. That it can be done in PowerPoint also, so it is not a difficult thing to have those things. Accordingly, you have to choose the font type also. If you are trying to manipulate the kerning, horizontal space, you have to choose the font types. Next comes balance. Now, for any visual, balance is important because basically the purpose of making a visual is it should be pleasing to see and easy to understand. The balance can be two types of balance: formal balance and informal balance. The formal balance, this is a typical example of formal balance. If you vertically divide it into two equal parts, so this text box is balancing this text box. This green box is balancing this. This text box is balancing this. So this is a kind of a formal balance. And formal balance is also very stable for any person to see. So for educational purposes, we always try to have a formal balance in our visuals. There are informal balance. I will show you the informal balance. Now this is a huge tree with a lot of blank space around it. Now in this picture, if we have a human figure, very small, but that gives a sense of balance, which was not in the previous. Yes. So that is very important. So that we have to understand, but the kind of informal balance is actually it is perceptive, and perception is unique in every individual. Every individual is unique, and perception is also not the same. It varies from one person to another person. So informal balance is perception based. So you never know if you have thought it's a balance. Someone may feel balanced, someone may not feel balanced. So it is always easy to and good to have maintain a formal balance in a visual rather than going into the informal balance. And once we have this, then there are we use a lot of images in a visual, and also in order to accommodate that image, sometimes we drag it from top or squeeze it, and then somehow we want to keep it. So that actually causes anamorphic distortion. So whenever we use an image, so we should drag it from the corners so that the aspect ratio, height and width remains same. Otherwise, you crop it and you try to squeeze it again from the corners, but we should not do it from sides or from top, so that stretching it becomes anamorphic and it distorts the image. Now, these are some of the examples I have brought to show you that how different types of scientific information can be made in a teaching aid, and then still it is pleasing to see, and it is good to look at. So now these are the things I will just cover one by one. So all with a dark background and with a lighter text composition. So if you'd like to ask anything or discuss anything, I would. Yes.
That in any presentation, sometimes in our in photography, usually I want our week or something called like. So for there, very difficult to adjust in a formal way because they have some building or like. And sometimes with these, we had to add text. So if such condition come one photo and like one box of text, which should be the left side and what should be the right?
There is no kind of a ideal sequence. As you think it is better. So that way you can put the photograph on a left and text box on the right. So accordingly, you can also make the shape of the text box if it is in portrait or any landscape. So depending upon the kind of text you are putting, you can place it wherever it looks good. There is no computer. Yeah. As in your slides, you stated that there should be the most important point is just below the 10th point. Just on top of the point. But suppose if that you divide in 4 parts. So which quadrant is will be first concentrated value? After optical center, it is the left, first one. Like from here, after your optical center, this, then again this, third, fourth. First, second, third.
So one more thing. If I'm having a plate which consists of the different insect parts, and then I am having the matter on the right side in the rectangular box, what will be the size of the caption which I am keeping for that plate? Approximately.
See, it should not be less than 18.
Should not be noted of that.
Less than 18 in order to have a visibility. Now in a kind of a closed group, even 14 becomes visible, but you never know in which kind of a setup you are going to show this or project this. So it is always good to have at least 18.
Regarding alignment, most people that I have seen in many presentation or in IRC presentation, they used to keep sentences in justify manner. But I would prefer to keep the sentences in left alignment. So which one is better?
Justify is better.
But in
But
justify manner,
in that case, one problem is in a text box, if the text box is wider and if there is less number of text, sometimes the text becomes very spread. And there is a gap between the text. So depending upon that, but now the text this and this and this and this uneven, that also does not look good. So you have to balance. Sometimes you have to make the text box a little less wider in order to have the less number of space between the words, even if it is justified. So it looks compact.
Sir, we see some presentations by national scientists. So for teaching, I think these are good, but they simply put a white background and write the sentences and like they are not justifying also. So
It depends who is making and what looks good to him. But what we are discussing is that what is generally perceived good by the audience. So that we are discussing. So anyway,
And how you can see
white background and
they don't.
white background, black text is many a time you have seen the road signage. The road signage you have seen, if you have followed, it is mostly blue board with a white text or green board with a white text. Road distance, mileage, maybe Lucknow 440 kilometers. Then it is all green board with white. Only in case of very emergency kind of information, it is the board is yellow, painted yellow, and the text is black. So only in case of emergency kind of a situation like SOS, the phone number SOS, all this, so that you will find in yellow background and with black text. So that catches the attention the most. But otherwise, mostly it is darker background and lighter text. That is general perception. But then I also like, sometimes I have seen many of our slides, the white background and colored text, and I find it very pleasing and very good to see. I also appreciate and many appreciates. So that does not
How many colors should be there? If there is a 5 or 6 line, so for each line, should I each color or 2 or 3?
mean one text box, it should be one color text. If you want to highlight keyword, only highlight the words in another color, but that also it should be only 2 colors. It should be 2 colors. Like it is now here, it is all white. If you want to highlight, you can make this orange, again make this orange, but only keep it white and orange. You should not then create white, orange, and green, everything. So that will not look.
Sir, what is the rule for using downloaded images from internet, like copyrighted or not?
We should not use download the copyright images from the net. Better we should use our own field or lab for that.
Copyrighted, sir.
No, if it's copyrighted and if you are using it, you must acknowledge. And at any point of time, you can put a disclaimer because this is not used for a commercial purpose. Then you can, for educational purpose, you can use it. You acknowledge the text.
Website for reference. Let's get the minor details given by Dr. Bergman. I think it will help in preparing better slides, better PowerPoint. It's a very important teaching aid. Thank you, Dr. Bergman. Thank you so much. And thank you for staying to the time. Sorry, I didn't go to the beginning.
Okay, thank you. Wish you all the best.
Thank you. चलिए बस में बैठिए